Hello, everybody. Welcome to STAR, specifically the Apocalypse in Sci-Fi. I am not your host, but I will be giving you the announcements. So, anyone who's familiar with the status quo knows that the first thing I always do when I come up here is ask for your money. We have a couple of wonderful items available for purchase, some of them physical, some of them metaphorical. The most important of these metaphorical purchases is your membership. You buy a membership to STAR, it gets you fantastic bonuses like discounts on some other physical things that you can buy and discounts on the STAR experience, including events that we run like StarFest. It's a great deal and it'll pay for itself if you're an involved member of the club. So that is $10 for the membership, and that will also get you my appreciation. If you're more into the physical side of things, we have sodas available for purchase for $1. Unless you're buying with Tiger Bucks, and then it's $1.25. Unless you're a member buying with Tiger Bucks, in which it's $1. It's complicated, but it makes sense. We also have shirts, which are usually $15. Is anybody wearing their STAR shirt today? Wow, Alex jumped out from behind the podium wearing his STAR shirt, almost as if it was planned, but was spontaneous. Alex, step into the shot to show the people on stream your beautiful STAR shirt. This was his idea, and he was very passionate about it. But actually, though, these STAR shirts are very nice. They're made of the highest quality that we can afford, and they have a wonderful design on them. They're very stylish. You will be the envy of all of your friends if your friends also want a STAR shirt. So that shirt is $15, but with that membership discount I mentioned earlier, they're only $10. So we have a special deal going where if you give us a $120 bill, you get two things, a membership and a shirt, and everyone knows that two is more than one. I'm so sorry.
You're not wrong.
Anyway, another thing that we have going on STAR is we have our regular committee meetings. We just started up our webmaster committee, so if you do the web development, or if you want a really cool resume piece, or if you want to learn about web development, or if you just think computers are neat, you can join the webmaster committee. Last Sunday, but their next meeting is Sunday, October 1st, and they are still taking new members. They are really excited to teach people, so or bring experienced people on to help with the website. So no matter your skill level, you will be welcomed there with open arms. So a good way to make sure that you stay on the loop with that if you're interested, because that first meeting is so far away, is that there is a website section on the Slack that is where you can keep all your news updates without having to listen to me blabber at you. We also have the PR committee, which meets Wednesdays at 8 to 10 p.m. and SAU 2740, which is do not attempt to go through the wall, go out the door and into the other door of the room. We need some freshmen on this committee because we make advertising for the club with the PR committee, and a lot of times we sort of forget which terms we know that most people don't, and we really are targeting the new people on campus and the freshmen, and having someone who has a freshman perspective is really valuable. So if you're kind of thinking about oh, maybe I kind of want to get more involved in this club, but I'm not really sure how, even if you're not a freshman, PR committee is definitely the way to go. It's how I got started being really involved with the club. It's how one of the mission runners, who will be here later, started to getting involved with the club. And it's just a really great way to meet some cool STAR people. We also have a book club, which is yet another way to meet cool STAR people if you're more into reading about sci-fi stuff. Those meet 30 minutes before the mission starts, so at 6:30 outside there somewhere. And you don't have to worry about jumping in partway through a book because they're just reading a short story right now called A Boy and His Dog. Seems pretty good. The pretty good engagement from the committee, and everyone seems to be having a good time with that one. We're also getting another committee going up soon, which is the planning. StarFest is our big event that we run in the spring, and it's a huge basically a mini convention. It's awesome. Look at all of this hype that's happening up here. There is arm shaking. And but actually, this is a lot of fun, but it also takes a lot of work to set up. And if you want to get involved with that, we don't even have a meeting time yet, so you can make sure that you absolutely get in on that. Post it on the Slack as soon as I'm done here. Will be the when to meet if it's not there already, so you can fill that out and make sure that you get a slice of that pie. Ava, do you want to talk about the STAR Museum?
I'd love to. So, as many of you guys know, there's this really awesome museum in Rochester called the Strong Museum of Play. In November, the weekend of November 18th and 19th, they're having an In Another Galaxy weekend. And they are taking some star volunteers to be costumed characters for that weekend. Character at the Strong Museum before, it is really fun, like really fun. If that is something you are interested in, the form is still up on our Facebook page. It is pinned to general Slack. It is in the email, and or you could just ask me because I'm right here. Hi, it's me. I wear goggles. But yeah, if that is something that you're interested in, even if you don't have a sci-fi costume right now, we can always throw something together for you. A lot of people have costume bits. It's a good time. I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful experience.
All right, thank you, Catherine. One last thing to say to everyone, this is something that is probably pretty interesting to most of you, is that Kingsman: The Golden Circle is coming out this weekend. And if you haven't seen the first one, it's great. It's just so over the top and like ridiculous. It's fantastic satire on the genre. So much fun. I've been excited for this sequel since I saw the movie. And if you really want to go see it, but are like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to get to the theater to buy my tickets because I don't have a car, and like what if it's sold out, and like, gosh, I don't want to go to the movies alone, we got your back. For today, if you give us $10, we will go out and we'll buy your ticket for you. So that's cheaper than Fandango, actually. And Friday at 5:30 in the SAU, right outside Nathan's, we're hosting a free carpool. So we will take everybody to the theater and take everybody back onto campus. So it's a great way to go see a movie with a bunch of awesome people and go see Kingsman. Like, it's going to be good. I really hope so. If it's done, I'll be really sad and I might cry, and you might get to see that if you come. Won't that be exciting?
It's really entertaining to see him cry.
I am a weeper. It's loud. It's ugly. It's so bad. But on that note, I'm going to hand it over to our lovely mission runner and talk about the Apocolypse.
Whoa, give me a second. Oh, yes.
Let's go.
Well, you went and turned down the lights more.
And same goes up.
Good. Amazing. Perfect. Welcome to the Apocalypse Sci-Fi, everyone. So you've also got the horrible fallout of nuclear weapons sent by North Korea. And now we're here to discuss what could probably happen in those apocalypses. There is a matter of discussing the difference between using the apocalypse as a setting and using the apocalypse as the theme for a story. For example, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 use the nuclear apocalypse of the United States as a setting more than towards the themes of its narrative. For example, you don't get to talk much about how society has changed because of the nuclear fallout in these games. On the other spectrum of this, you have the original game, the sequel, and New Vegas, which actually let you take a look into the various societies that have formed around nuclear culture. For example, in New Vegas, you have the Cons, who are a very nomadic kind of tribe that roams around the state of Nevada. You've got the Boomers, who basically worship their artillery, anybody who tries to get near them. You've got the casinos, which, given their vast resources, control the region. And then you've got the Caesar's Legion, which is attempting to take over the US. And according to their leader, he believes that the reason why he should be the one to lead them is that society does not need democracy, and therefore, because democracy is what brought about the end before. If you can actually do an entire study on different types of rulers, different types of leaders from Fallout New Vegas. It's really good. But also, before we continue, let us give tribute to the greatest director and producer of apocalyptic settings, Roland Emmerich, and his many, many movies. Okay. So you know that movie coming out, Geostorm, which is about a weather satellite? Okay, so there's a movie coming out recently, which I was surprised wasn't directed or produced by Roland Emmerich, which is called Geostorm, when a weather satellite goes rogue. This is the German version of the movie. It is from 1984. We went to Germany and we copied their work 33 years ago. Let's just add it fluff to reuse the satellite. I don't know how. I think it's like Das Haus. So, oh, and of course, Independence Day and Independence Day Resurgence, both Roland Emmerich movies. So, if you don't know, that's him. That's yes, Claire.
Why does he hate us?
I can't speak to why the man really enjoys taking CG versions of, you know, famous landmarks and destroying them, but I can say it's really entertaining to watch the White House get blown up.
You said he was German?
He's German. Interesting. Okay, that's
a live stream to the internet.
yeah. So as you can see, he's had. Okay, let's just go over what settings he's done. He's had the weather destroy everything. He's had the results of nuclear testing destroy New York. I don't remember the original. Not the original Godzilla. This is not the original Godzilla. He's had a pandemic in hell destroy the world. He's had aliens come twice to blow up the Earth. And again, the weather again for some odd reason instead of having a giant wave crush a sorry old monk, just freezing us to death. Yes.
But that movie did have a giant wave.
The day after tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh my!
There was more than one giant thing that happened. The giant thing was one of them. The end of it is all like everything froze.
Yeah, everything froze and then moving on. So off of Emmerich's, obsession with the environment world, we have a lot of movies like Wall-E, Mad Max, Einstein, Emmerich's own little gem, The Day After Tomorrow, Kirby 64, Geostorm 2017, and Planet of the Apes and Mega Man Zero. Joe, where are you?
Hi.
Mega Man Zero?
Yeah, and also Waller.
Yeah. So, yes. I don't know.
Should be on this list.
Is it environmental?
I think it's like global warming, out of control future.
Okay. So
yes.
let's focus on how each of these use their setting as the theme.
Wait, and Waterworld?
Waterworld? Yes, but we don't talk about it. Waterworld is technically a movie that exists, but if you ever tell someone that you watched it, I'm pretty sure the respect for you goes down a little bit.
It's a movie. I thought it was a virtual game.
It's both. And it's embarrassing to have done both. Choose both. All right, so if you don't know, in Kirby 64, there is a planet that is covered in ice. And in some of the indoor levels of that planet, they look very much like malls and factories that we have on Earth. So technically, Kirby 64 is about the future where Earth has been taken over by climate change so radically that everything froze and we all are just gone.
And somehow humans have evolved into like pink spheres.
Yeah.
No.
So Kirby's
The Star Warriors are a different race. All right. So the main thing that defines these franchises as being about the environment is a lack of resources that causes the collapse of civilization or causes them to run away like sissies into space.
And get really fast.
And get really fast.
You have another environmental apocalypse.
Dinosaurs.
But yeah, so as a result of the Earth becoming cluttered with too much trash because humans literally got too lazy to pick up their own things. I was going to say a bad word there, but we're on live stream, so I can't say that. Next meeting. That's next meeting. Stay here for starting inside by all week. And then we have Mad Max, which kind of muddles up somewhat what causes the apocalypse. The first movie states that there is a resource shortage. The second movie states instead that there was a nuclear apocalypse and that the Australian desert is just because of that, because of radiation, and so there's nothing there left. And then the third movie just forgets about all that and is just like, hey, look, a Thunderdome. Then we have Einstein from a novel, I forgot the name of it, but the idea of this was, in the novel, this compound was created to be able to solidify mud for soldiers so that they wouldn't have to walk on mud. Unfortunately, Einstein functions as a sort of crystal that then proceeds to freeze everything at room temperature. In other words, causing an environmental catastrophe without needing global warming to happen. Day after tomorrow, we've already talked about it. Everything freezes over. There's a giant wave somehow, even though everything's frozen over. And yeah,
Average before everything is over.
and as we've talked before, Geostorm 2017 is just Roland Emmerich's thesis movie, except in the United States, not written or produced by him, but also with the president dying. Who here has seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes? Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Okay, so if you didn't know, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a completely new take on the Planet of the Apes timeline. In the original timeline, what actually caused the apocalypse was, which then humans proceeded to, in some of the latter movies of the original trilogy, worship as their god. But in the new one, a lot of things happen with a pandemic and a breakdown of the environment in the planet, where resources become scarce for the humans, and as such, since apes are better prepared for, I don't know, survival, I guess, they manage to somewhat come out on top. The movies depict going back and forth on that several times. I'm not sure why. Let's take a little focus on Mad Max and how it uses its themes. So it focuses on the collapse of society to a resource crisis. Yes, I witnessed. Captain, you're gonna get tired.
We're tired.
Does anybody mind spoilers from the first three movies? I'm not gonna talk about the fourth movie at all because most of the themes that are relevant to this presentation are in the first three movies.
Talk about environmentalism one slide ago.
We're moving beyond that. So, if you don't know, Max was a policeman in the metropolitan area in Australia. The result of the first movie is because they're so understaffed and so lacking in resources, the police can barely keep up with the gangs that are wreaking havoc in the city. The movie ends with Max getting revenge on the gangs for killing his family, and then him driving out to the wasteland, having stolen one of the more turbocharged police cars, having gone a bit insane from the fact that his family died. So the idea of Mad Max is to show how society can collapse upon the lack of resources. As a result of, for example, the police not having enough people to go around and enforce the law, you have gangs that just roam around and do bad things to people, who steal fuel, steal food, water, any resources they can. It focuses on how bad can humanity get when survival is on the line. But at the same time, it parallels this to Max, a person who, despite having quite clearly gone a little bit cuckoo in the head, still manages to in the wasteland. The second and third movies end on a much brighter note than the first movie, where they show the people who he saved actually settling down and managing to survive outside of the wasteland, and telling stories of the road warrior that came to save them. Something else, but yeah. So also, Thunderdome is just a really badass movie. Also, I didn't know that Mel Gibson played him in the first 3 movies. I thought it was somebody else.
He was supposed to be in the fourth one.
Yes, I know, because of the production in 2003, but anyway. And I'm assuming that Fury Road just continues this in some way. Ava, Captain, can you confirm this?
It's cool.
It's cool.
You don't see this cool.
You got to see Fury Road? I've seen the
Fury
first
Road
3.
is good.
What?
It's real good.
It's really good.
It's real good.
Alex, we're gonna watch Fury Road. I just watched it like 2 days ago. I'll watch it again.
You saw my costume, right? I'm so proud of you.
Moving on, we have the cultural breakdown of. Moving on from, I can't copy the name. I apologize. Moving on from that, we have the cultural collapse of society, where society just sort of becomes complacent, and social values and morals erode to the point where everyone is kind of there for on their own, or just trying to not have to fall out of. Not have to fall out of line. For example, Brave New World is a great example of this, because most of the time, if you start exhibiting symptoms that you aren't in line with, their weird world where everyone should be satisfied with where they are, they take you to an island where you can go try things there. Typically, this is like in Hunger Games, Chicago and Divergent, and most notably Rapture from Bioshock. Yes?
1984 fall under you as well, or is that
not necessarily, because that is entirely government controlled, and it wasn't society's values that pushed them that way. It was more a group of people that chose to push the envelope to fascism and to the total control of people's minds. It's not an erosion of values and morals, it's an aggressive enforcement of them. I'm gonna go with you.
Me?
Like in the back, and then you judge. No, yeah.
I argue that Brave New World is actually not in that category because of the same reasons 1984 isn't. It's not so much of the society doing it to itself, but the upper class enforcing those values upon the society in a very similar way to 1984. It's just less actively violent.
I can see how, I can see how my argument can be used for Brave New World. And I raise you that in order for Brave New World to actually happen, there needs to be an active part of the society helping them push it. In 1984, it becomes very apparent that it's the use of a fascist agenda that enforces the morals and values so aggressively. In Brave New World, everybody just sort of became complacent towards it, and you could probably also include in this Fahrenheit 451 a little bit, because people devalue books in a certain way. Yes, Josh?
Would you consider North Korea as a real-life example of a culture apocalypse?
Unfortunately, I don't know much about the inner workings of North Korea.
Because the reason why I said that is because they're such an isolated society that they don't know what's going on in the outside world. They simply do not know that. It's just they give up. I'm just trying to say, like, even the most upper class people do not know what's going on. It's like no one has any answers to anything. It's kind of bizarre in that sense.
It is, yeah.
This also has to do with Brave New World in 1984, because I think the big difference here between Apocalypse and
Dystopia
Dystopia is in the attitude of the leaders. like we see in 1984, the interview with, or torture session.
Yeah.
With, I forgot his name, where that's what he said. O'Brien.
Yeah.
Where he's forcing his ideas onto the main character.
Yeah.
Winston.
So O'Brien forces his ideas onto Winston Smith, making it very aggressive. Enforcement of the values, right? And in Brave New World, if they see that you're not conforming, they just go, oh, okay, we'll just set you up somewhere else.
Yeah, they just send them to an island, and the big difference is leader in there doesn't force his ideas when he talks to John. He explains them. He explains where they came from. And the thing I want to draw to that is with Pan in there, something far more 1984 like the Brave New World.
Yeah.
Snow's forcing the Hunger Games to hold on to power, and everybody really just wants to kill him.
Yeah. I unfortunately cannot talk more about the Giver. Does anybody know what that is? All right, let's go with. Let's go. Somebody wants to talk? Okay, Ryan.
Sure. So the Giver was one of those dystopia utopian novels where everything in this world was perfect until its plot twist. It's not perfect at all. I know, like I work.
Spoilers!
Sorry, I work at a bookstore, and the number of books that are framed like that, astounding. Anyway, like everything's fine until she meets one boy and realizes everything isn't fine at all.
How many books are framed in the reverse?
Too many. There are too many. Anyway, so The Giver is basically about a society that, does anyone care about spoilers? This book's like 30 years old. All right, so it's about a society that preferred consistency. They decided to remove the worst of like human experience, and as a result, also the best, because they decided that sameness was more important than, like, security and sameness was more important than experience, bad and good. And they did that by essentially, like, they invented machines to regulate weather. So you no longer have like bright sunny days, but you also no longer have natural disasters. And they removed color from the world somehow. That was kind of weird. Like, it was neat thematically, but on a practical science level, it just didn't make any sense.
Right. Colorblind.
You just make everyone colorblind.
Yeah, right.
No, because he stopped being colorblind when he woke up.
You know, so, all right, so.
Drew attention to color. He was never colorblind, but because most of the society was colorblind, no one drew attention to the idea of color. They described him seeing color in the world, but not knowing how to even describe it as an attribute.
They just.
The whole thing when he sees the apple, and it's like, it changed, and it was weird, and it had this
But that's a
thing.
flashback. That happened before the event.
But the girl's hair happened during the book.
It's essentially this. They managed to remove human memories of all this stuff from people, including memories of color. However, there was one single member of the community known as the Giver who would hold on to all these memories in the event that the community wasn't able to solve a problem that they would need to call upon them for assistance.
Yeah. Thank you.
Also, they were like aggressively reinforced etiquette. Wait, Alex.
Yeah.
Pressure's not a Bioshock because the world is still functioning as normal. It's just the one society.
No, it's the one, you know. But the city itself is kind of dystopian because everyone became drug addicts.
Dystopian.
Apocalypse. It was a mini apocalypse in Rapture because everything isn't working anymore down there. Everyone's just sort of scavenging for Adam. That sounds weird. Yes.
You could argue that in the bad end, it becomes Apocalypse books. So this is spoiler. It's a little bit of spoiler, but you haven't already been.
How old is Bioshock? Like 10 years. Who minds Bioshock?
Okay, but see, the spoiler in the middle of Bioshock is too good.
I'm not talking
No,
about.
that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the endings.
Oh,
Very end.
And then the bad end, where all the splicers come to the surface of the world, and there's the implication
that you've effectively ended the world.
Yeah.
That's fair.
There's implication about you wanting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're including a community cultural apocalypse, wouldn't places in the Hunger Games like the capital or some of the first districts that are willing to do these things like the Hunger Games be cultural?
Oh, yeah, I mean, some of those districts are privileged and to the point where they can actually afford to train their youth to take part in the
And
Hunger
the capital,
Games.
which doesn't even have to do that. It's
Yeah.
completely messed up.
I'm gonna go Joe, then Ryan.
So why is the axiom on this list? Because literally everyone on the ship is actually perfectly happy with their circumstance.
Okay, but-
They're all incapable of like self-propulsion.
All right, okay, Joe. Look at their faces after Wally shows up. They're all bored. They're not happy. They're all bored watching their screens all day, sipping burgers from a cup.
Yeah, it's the same as the Giver.
All right.
Okay, so I think what the disagreement here is a dystopia necessarily bad? Like, do you have to feel bad? No. See, there's an argument that removing the freedom of choice, like they do in The Giver and they do on the Axiom, constitutes a dystopia, where they're happy because they don't know any better and they don't have the freedom to do what they want.
Okay,
I
Joe.
mean, Brave New World was I didn't make there's a Brave New World where actually we're satisfied with the results of what happened. They actually didn't mind going to the island.
But also, it's not like they're being. It's not like the government or anything is trying to not give them info. They're just too lazy to get the info.
No, because they're also
but this is-
prohibited from doing things that aren't on their schedule.
But Joe, the point of the axiom being dystopia is that they're all complacent in what's happening. And ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for John Fish, the other host of this mission. But we were discussing why the axiom in itself is a dystopia, because according to Joe, everyone's happy on it. But they're not, because if
everyone is happy.
Everyone is
That's
happy.
the point of this kind of apocalypse, is that it doesn't really, is that everyone's happy, but it's a very hollow happiness. It doesn't really have any sort of meaning to it. Why are they happy? They're happy because they're being fed. They're fat and happy, you know?
they're like my argument was that it's not genuine happiness.
Yeah.
It's conformity. They're conforming to being on their chairs and drinking their food smoothies all day. And you only really see genuine happiness in one of the characters once they break out of that cycle and start watching, the space.
I didn't know he had a pool.
Exactly.
The captain was like having crippling depression because all he did every day was follow the routine. And then he found out that he could do something, then he found out that he couldn't do something because the clandestine orders told him he couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the captain wasn't happy. Because he actually got a job. Everyone else didn't.
Right. So I was going to focus more on Brave New World, but we've talked a lot about it. But the main idea behind Brave New World is making everyone conform to the point where, from birth, your social standing is picked. You have no choice where you're going to end up in life. You are a product of a factory that irradiates your embryo, that puts alcohol through it, puts disease on it to try to make you dumber and only better when you were born. Vince, did you have something to say?
movie.
Okay. But yeah, so everyone's monitored to see if they conform, and unlike in 1984, you are not aggressively enforced. Instead, they just go, oh, you don't like this? Let's go to the island. It's fine. The whole world is essentially one big cage for society, because nobody essentially knows any better. And at any point when somebody starts to question their worldview, much like what the female lead did in interacting with John, it broke down a lot of, it broke her down completely. She was an emotional wreck. Yes.
Something I'd like to start to find out about Brave New World is that it's not just, oh, you don't fit in, go to the island. The going to the island is only allowed for very specific people in very specific circumstances, which we only heard about because there was a character who didn't fit in, like tried to, went through mental lengths because he didn't fit in, because of that. Yeah. Other than that, the system is working fine.
But it's very apparent to cycle. It's really hard to break out, yes.
I always found a very new world as a society that was solely dealt with engineering. Everything was thought through. Everyone's cradle-to-grave life was pre-planned. Everything was pre-planned. Everyone's life was pre-planned, so they were able to reach, but their full potential was to a realistic point versus
rather than dreaming.
Yeah. What?
Like you stated, realistic. Well, dreaming is about realistic, and they didn't understand in that. You were stating how there's a set standard, and this is the fullest potential. Well, how can you define that when?
Like everyone has a warranty. Like nearly everyone's warranty is 60 years, and then you're done, and then you get a replacement.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, like everything's cycle. Like even what they do for fun and what their leisure time is. So
that's right into the conceit of the story, is that you can't plan out a person's life. If there's a life without a meaning, then what really is life?
So every entity is a dream, and that it's not, well, and that dream just so happens to have metabolic processes that are often colloquially called life. And if there's no dream, then that's not, then that in it itself is not, it's just a parallel of that concept.
Exactly. So we are going to move into WALL-E. We decided to talk about WALL-E because at this point, because it kind of blends the last two kinds of apocalypses. It's both cultural and environmental. WALL-E, the titular protagonist, comes from the apocalypse that was environmental, and he comes from the cultural apocalypse. Ultimately, they both came from the same cause, which was materialism. At the time, they both had the same solution, and it's not a simple solution. You have to put in work. You have to be the change that you want to see in the world, and that's what the plant represents. WALL-E and Eve represent the good in their own societies. WALL-E from the past and his fixation on the dancing of the things that happened before. And Eve is the potential of people to come back and rebuild the world and the culture that they threw away.
Also, David Hasselhoff is a terrible president.
That was David Hasselhoff?
I think it was.
No, it wasn't.
It was somebody with a handsome chin.
Just call it a day. Call it a day. President of the DNL Corporation and the world? No.
Well, yeah, one thing's for sure: no one had a handsome chin on the Axiom.
Fun fact: the movie that Lolly keeps watching is Hello Dolly. Oh, isn't that it?
Disney.
Okay.
John. It might have significance.
Maybe, I don't know.
So, wait, hang on. As the stream of zombie movie and zombie books after zombie books after zombie movie after zombie series ended yet, John?
It'll never happen.
Never. Wait, which one?
Walking Dead.
Everything in pop culture since 2011.
Brad Pitt is basically funding the World War Z movie, so that will never end.
It could be good.
Ryan, I know, right? Ryan, say I'm not having the first. We're not having this here.
I'm dead serious.
No.
I'm not.
Hey, you're dead serious. Punjar.
I don't know.
I'll write it down.
All right. Put it on my tab. That's a quarter. This should fund my next 5 pounds.
Here we go, one.
All right. So we've got the original Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero, which, by the way, is in public works because of a mistake with the opening credits.
Really?
Yes. You see, back then, in order for a movie to be considered copyright, you needed to have the copyright symbol on the title card for your movie. Because one of the editors forgot to do that. Night of the Living Dead entered the public works, public domain. Sorry, the public domain. Meaning that we have that editor to thank for this really, really long list of things.
Although you could definitely argue that we have Robert Kirkman to thank for a large part of this list, because holy hell did they start coming after The Walking Dead.
I thought it was also because George Romero and the writer had an argument over who. Because
they did. None of them could claim the copyright because of that.
Another thing that is an interesting scenario where I think there's like 3 different sequels that are all separate timelines.
Yeah. Well, that's real neat. And yeah, I've read all the synopses of these movies. Vince, what's up?
Don't forget the typing of the dead.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Just mentioned that Plan 9 from Outer Space is all about using a zombie apocalypse to stop the universal apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space is certainly a movie.
Is it?
Technically qualifies as a motion picture. Okay, guys, let's bring it back. All right, so I think we all know that this is basically a pandemic movie. These are all pandemic movies about a disease breaking out of a lab and destroying humanity as well. And also, only like half of these are movies. What? Only like half of these are movies. That's true. Well, let's see. This is a show. That's a movie. Movie. Currently a video game, but could be a movie. Book. In the works, maybe to be a movie. And yeah, movie. Like, holy crap, did people eat up zombie
Video
movies?
game once, there were at least 2 games on that list.
Yep, there are 2 video games. I know 3 video games. The Walking Dead's got everything. Cameroni.
How could you forget Call of Duty Nazi zombies?
Okay. No. We already have George Romero up there. Look, after what, Advanced Warfare or something? Okay, but Black Ops 1 also had zombie George Romero. No, didn't Black Ops 1 also have JFK shooting zombies? Yeah, it did, and it was awesome. No, that guy sucked.
Serious. So I think I disagree that all zombie movies are pandemic movies. A lot of it all depends on how the zombies are treated. In some media, it is a bite and it is infectious, like World War Z and Shaun of the Dead. I agree that those are pandemic movies. However, there is some zombie media where it's just when you die, you come back a zombie. And I consider that to be more of just like a straight apocalypse.
Well, that's the fun thing about the zombie genre is, well, Freya said there are a lot of things like the World War Z movie where it's just a pandemic movie. There's things like The Walking Dead or Dawn of the Dead where like they'll use zombies for other reasons than Dawn of the Dead uses it to critique consumerism.
By the way, I consider 28 Days / Weeks Later to be one of the best movies on this list. Well, the first one. The second one, not so much because there's several plot holes that.
Also, The Girl with All the Gifts, pretty neat book. It's if any of you saw Warm Bodies, imagine if that was good.
Oh.
All right, interesting.
But I guess with The Last of Us, which is honestly my favorite take on zombies, because it uses a real world thing of the cordyceps fungus, which is a fungus that infects ants.
Yes.
It takes over their bodies to have them do something. They turn ants into zombies. The whole basis of the video game is that evolves to affect humans somehow. But
Yeah, I actually think The Last of Us, when it comes to how it treats its zombies in its story, is probably one of the weaker ones because the zombies don't really serve as much more than antagonists, and the focus is more on the focus is on the characters, which is fine.
Okay. There was a hand up over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
So I would preface this with I can't remember the title of the book or the author's name.
What's it about?
Zombies, I'm getting there. So there's zombie apocalypse, but society has kind of continued on anyway. And the story actually follows these bloggers following a presidential candidate's political campaign and uncovering a plot along the way that just so happens to involve those weaponized versions of the zombie virus. But it's like not a pandemic story. Because yeah, there's a zombie apocalypse, but whatever, we have lives. We have normal people lives. In other
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Also, the guy who wrote this book would literally call the CDC and be like, if I did this and this, would I get zombie virus? And the CDC would be like, no. And eventually he called them and was like, if I did this and this, and they were like, don't do that. And that was how he went.
All right, we got one more question, and then we're moving on.
Oh, I just wanted to specify this first next is a genus, and that there's different species that are attracted.
All right.
What is this? Let's take a bit of a focus on Walking Dead.
Which is, that's the zombie thing of the now. So the Walking Dead is not about the zombies. It's about the people and how they work to either build themselves out of the zombie apocalypse or work with the zombie apocalypse to create new lives. We don't really know a lot about the zombies' origins or scientifically or biologically. And that's by design. It's because the only things we really know about them are what they do. And that's so that they can either used as tools or properly or efficiently dealt with without things getting really out of hand. The zombies are predictable, but the zombies are predictable, but they're still mysterious.
Yeah, the government basically used how predictable they are to weaponize them in some ways. So like,
well, he used them for entertainment. The governor used the zombies for the sake of sport, like a gladiator ring.
Is that Thunderdome?
Or a Thunderdome. Sorry, I prefer to reference better movies than Beyond Thunderdome.
The correct response is, can't you just get beyond Thunderdome?
Alright. But anyway, so an important part of the zombies in The Walking Dead is how, as the story has progressed over the years, the zombies stop becoming the real antagonists of the story
Stream's back.
Is that when one more lands, then you can find another.
She was trapped in there.
Okay.
Star Wars again, because I just remembered that she Decimal World, episode 7, they blew up 5 planets. I'm like, how do we see? Remember the gravitas of Abe blowing up Alderaan?
I don't remember that. It's kind of an apocalypse. I mean, there's nothing in an apocalypse that says there has to be anything left. All right. Wait, no, the man with the hat next to you.
There's another RPG apocalypse actually called Polaris, where like after the world was devastated by 500 wars and climatic catastrophes, humanity was forced to go underwater, and like now they all live in the underwater cities, but they're slowly dying off due to like mutations from radiation and sterilization. Shot.
Oh.
Okay, even further in Star Wars, Rogue One, Death Star testing, small scale apocalypse of cities.
That scene on Jeddah was like straight up ripped right out of 2012. Yeah, we watched this weekend. The scene in 2012 where the president that's totally not Obama is staring at the giant wave that's just washing over the entire Capitol. That's the exact same scene.
But I think that would be part of apocalypse, because all that was just ejected into the atmosphere. It's not going to fall back down.
Joe?
My favorite kind of apocalypse is the nerd-ocalypse, which I hear is happening on November 4th.
I also heard Star is long.
Star, RIT's Sci-Fi Club that meets on Mondays from 7 to 9.
John, they're already
Starfest on next March.
Star, the couple that's going to be featured at BruderCon RAT's gaming convention, February 16th.
Hey, Kyle.
Well, there's this one comic series, I don't know if I mentioned it, A While the Last Man, which is a good series where basically a virus appears that kills any male gendered like non-humans too. So that was interesting about it.
Except for
one, yeah. And yep. So they're friends, they go on adventures, also lots of messed up shenanigans.
How about fish that alter between becoming male and female?
Good question.
I mean, frogs could be neutral.
What about your plan?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got so many. Soma, in which, I believe.
I wouldn't spoil food.
Okay, I won't spoil Soma.
Okay.
There's an apocalypse in there somewhere.
I'm gonna make Cameron and Cooper fight for this.
And pretty much every Mario.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, let me rephrase. Pretty much every Paper Mario game and/or Mario and Luigi game.
You're not wrong.
Regular Mario games take place in their own.
So do we think that Firefly returns an apocalypse? Like a government takeover? Because
No, we've done government takeover.
Yeah, no, but does it count? Because there is such a vast area which you can operate outside of the government, but it's sort of like a wasteland.
That's just genocide people. Okay, and by people I mean everyone.
Something.
So, if the government is trying to aggressively enforce their morals and values, it doesn't count. It doesn't necessarily count. It doesn't necessarily. It can if those morals and values are purely for the sake of order or survival, like with Brave New World of the Givers. Yes.
With that though, Earth was destroyed. And that's that.
Okay.
So apocalypse, yeah or nay?
Well, if Earth is destroyed, that's an apocalypse.
So that's like a set automatically. Like if the Earth is ever destroyed, even if
the people are living on it and it gets destroyed, and you destroy it,
Literally, living next to no one on the planet. They got tired of holding it as it had been, so they let it get destroyed. That is not an apocalypse.
Yeah. You, sir, you had your hand up. Yeah. You want me to come back to you?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds?
It's sort of.
Yeah, it's an invasion,
Yeah.
sort of apocalypse.
The book is way better than I.
Oh, I haven't heard the radio show yet. Okay. Logan.
Waterworld.
We've already. I knew it was gonna come again. It came up when you weren't here, and it came up now.
Would we consider the board a walking cultural apocalypse?
Yes. The Borg from Star Trek.
And then the Cybermen also.
The Borg are definitely apocalypse.
Okay, so getting back to the point about Mario. So some of the Mario games, including Paper Mario and Super Mario Bros. 3, are confirmed to just be like theatrical production, not actually canon in the
Paper Mario theatrical production. All I do know
There's a
is the
stage.
stage.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Paper Mario. Pretty sure. Anyway, the point I was going to make though is it's not so canon is very debatable, but Brawl introduced the stage Mushroom Kingdom, which is a post-apocalyptic, like nuclear wasteland version of World War Level 1 and World War Level 2.
Name the map again.
Black hole.
Yeah.
Name the map again so I can Google it.
Mushroom Kingdom.
The subspace emissary.
Also, yes.
That's pretty apocalyptic. Pretty apocalypse-y.
Children of Men.
What?
Children of Men.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Humanity becomes sterile. So we can no longer make babies.
Oh yeah. Claire, because you saw them gone, and a lot of these people have gone, and then you're next.
Have we talked about the Matrix yet?
Yes. It was on site.
Train to Busan.
Train to what?
Train to Busan. It's a Korean zombie movie, and it's awesome. It's basically it's like the first few days there's a zombie outbreak. I think it's actually only in South Korea, and they have to get to this one city, Busan. It's in the south, and it's kind of like a chase movie.
Might check it out. All right, in the back.
The 12 simultaneous nuclear apocalypse is about
Yeah. Wow. That also reminds me of the number 12 reminds me of another movie with Bruce Willis. 12 Monkeys.
What about the other one? Nuclear apocalypse is caused by a robot apocalypse that already happened in the past.
Okay, Armageddon, the apocalypse doesn't actually happen. Right.
Yes. I was going to talk about a musical. You're in town.
Ew, gross.
It's the idea is that due to a water shortage, oh god, I forgot their logic within the show, but they openly acknowledge that yes, there is science for other ways to solve a water shortage, but this is a musical. We don't worry about science here. But basically, people have to pay exorbitant amounts of money to pee. And
don't spoil the ending.
What? It's wonderful, and it's
amazing, and you should all watch it.
Yes, I highly recommend finding it. RIT did a production of it a couple of years ago. Super interesting. You're in town. One word.
Okay.
They mock themselves throughout the whole thing.
So, what about that time in Star Trek when the Klingons found a species of furry animal they didn't like for some reason, and the whole world and killed all of them? They were enemies of the Empire.
Star Trek and the planet blew up 1,000 years before Picard even heard about it.
Star Trek is just cheating when you're talking about this.
Also, some of our stories were about that time J.J. Abrams struggled.
Oh, yeah. Just
when you make
have 5 minutes.
He's gonna make it a lens flare weapon, and then you made it a lens flare.
I don't think what? So many hands. You have
There's a video game called Endless Legend where it's kind of like it's kind of like a fantasy empire building game, but but as you're playing through the game, the planet you're on slowly, like summers get shorter, winters grow longer, and it's essentially going towards an ecological collapse. Because if you actually delve into the lore, ancient alien species bombarded it. But the cool thing is that in another game by the same company and the space, you could actually find that same planet long dead and just like long dead and barren, and you could actually like terraform it and bring it back to life. I got a nuclear apocalypse. Go on. Civilization when you're playing against Gandhi.
Yeah. This is why you wipe out Gandhi first.
Kill him while you can.
He's idle. I mean, he's idle until he gets nukes, and then he blows everyone up.
Does everybody know why Gandhi was president first in civilization?
I know that his aggressiveness was set to like the lowest possible thing, and whenever you do something that would lower it, it would loop around to the most aggressive possible.
It's are wonderful.
Well, that's how it was originally. Now they just make Gandhi.
Now it's just.
I was gonna say, I was in Independence Day was technically Apocolypse.
Yeah, I think we've been over this with Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, we.
And speaking of Roland Emmerich, Godzilla it's called Final Wars, right?
Yeah, it is.
Whereby Zilla is killed off in the Sydney Opera House.
It was amazing.
I'm extremely sure. Destiny kills on screen.
That's the one Star Trek episode where the government has a war between two planets and people don't know any better and just walk themselves to their deaths because they were so lucky.
They basically have a simulation. They don't actually.
Ooh, I just remembered.
It's the one where they produce war, like such a specific thing that they will use to fight the war itself.
And walk through that.
So
that counts cultural.
I just remembered that in Stargate they've blown up a sun and an entire solar system, and that was actually both were on purpose.
All right. Well, as much as we'd love to hear more, we're out of time. But we are really happy you guys came. Thanks for participating, and see you next week. See you next week. Also, if you want to buy memberships or T-shirts, buy those. If you want to come see Kingsman with us, you can buy tickets. Just see our.
You can call this.
See our ops or
Yeah.
And next week,
The best Apocolypse.
Sci-Fi. Same time.
The best Apocolypse is Roadhog, the one man Apocalypse.
Oh
I mean, there was an Apocalypse, the movie.
Solo. Good open. Supernatural.
Ryan, I literally see Good Omens is better Supernatural. That's what Crowley. It's not just Ryan. Crowley would blast metal music in a bar that was on fire. Crowley was very obvious. Here's the thing, Ryan, I trusted considering Neil Gaiman was on the front. Also, you literally cannot do this.
Somebody should stop the stream. I'm killing the stream. Kill it. Kill it, fire. See you later.